Thank you very much. I will just give you a brief introduction for you to understand where I'm coming from. I mean, Thomas, thank you very much for actually sharing some of this data already. But I would like to tell you a little bit more about how I get into this. And I think it is important because probably some of you will actually relate with me. And some of you will maybe better understand what I'm trying to actually achieve with all this. Now, saying that we are developing methodology for disruptive innovation is kind of, well, I will not say overstatement, but it's a bold statement, definitely. But we do have some progress in this field, and I will show you what kind of progress we have. Now, this is my first modem. I don't know if any of you maybe recognize this device. I was a student at the time, actually enrolling my university. It was 1994, and I'm coming from Belgrade, from Serbia. And at that time, we didn't have actually internet in Serbia yet, commercially at least. And luckily, I had a cousin who was living in Canada, and he actually sent me a computer overseas to help me with my studies. And it had this device. So I was really curious, how can I use this? Because it was not really possible to use this device in Serbia at the time. But it was maybe a few months only after that that they started actually with the first commercial plans for internet at the time. And I was so much excited. I went there and I got the contract number 44. So I like to brag in my country that I'm the 44th user of the internet, which is actually an overstatement because it was already there in on academic level, but not commercially. Nevertheless, from that time, like I was young guy, and I remember some people told me who were watching porn at that time, not me, but some friends. They told me that you had to wait for a very long time, for this image to load. You actually no, there was no video at the time, just images. But you had to wait for a long time, for these images because the connection was really, really slow. And the reason I'm telling you this because nowadays, at least last 5 years or so, I'm in Web3 technology, and I kind of have some kind of nostalgia because it seems a bit similar, because we are working with a blockchain which is kind of slow, and it actually reminds me of these times when it was about bytes and kilobytes, not about megabytes, gigabytes, or terabytes. Nevertheless, what happened after my passion, in 1997 I started actually working professionally as a developer, and I'm working that since then. I'm also teaching web development at university. But 5 years ago, I got lucky to actually being invited to a company in supply chain industry working with Web3. And I was really, not really familiar what is blockchain. I heard about it. We all heard about it, but it was not really something in my sphere of interest. But nevertheless, after some time, I got infected. I started working with that protocol. We were developing a protocol for supply chain, and it was awesome. It was really interesting. But after a while, I jumped out as well. And I went back to Web 2. In a way. But then again, after maybe a year, another company called me and said, let's work again on Web 3 and so on. So my heart is kind of divided, and I'm really very much in Web 2 development as well, but I'm actively working now in Web 3. And I don't know if all of you, I suppose you do know how this evolved over time, but just as a recap, like in 90s we had this Web 1 basically where the content was actually served to the users. The users were not really that much in control of the content. They were just receivers. And then we had Web 2 happening in the beginning of 2000s, where basically some of these dynamics is introduced, and we have participatory but centralized internet. And what does it mean, centralized? Well, we all know that basically this information, everything that we are storing on the internet is ownership of some of the companies. Now, in the lot of it is done in terms of legislation and things like that to prevent any kind of misuse of this data. But we are also witnesses that this is not the case. Now, the Web3 is something that actually brings this promise of a different future, decentralized future where you own your data, where you have no intermediaries and stuff like that. And I'm kind of, guy who likes this type of revolutionary thinking, let's ditch these big companies and let's have our data for ourselves and let's be the owners of what is going on and let's, ditch the intermediaries. And this is why I was actually hooked on this Web3 philosophy in the first place. Now, the problem on the other side is that you probably are aware of I would say, hundreds of, maybe even thousands of scams that are happening on this space. Like Web3 is full of frauds, almost, any field of Web3 was compromised at a certain point. I even recently was approached by a guy who is actually doing scamming, and he confessed to me that he is doing this on purpose. He actually offered me to help him, and I was like, no, I don't want to hear about you anymore. I never reported him because it was not really, I didn't have any information to prove what he told to me, but actually guy actually asked me to help him in scamming people. So what I wanted to say is like, yeah, it is a bad image of Web3, definitely. It is a bad image of this whole industry. There are lots of scams. There are lots of, projects that are dishonest, at least. Like people are very often, you will find projects that will just fork something else. They find a good project on the other, that some other team developed, because everything is open source. They just fork it, create a friendly or not so friendly fork, and then create a little bit different narrative about it. And like the only difference is basically who is getting the money in the end. Not the old team but the new team. So these kind of things are happening a lot, and this is something definitely that's even made me after first my adventure into Web3 to step out for a little bit. I was like not really convinced at the time, is it really something that will bring benefit? Volatility again, another problem of these cryptocurrencies, because everything has a price in crypto, in blockchain. So basically, if you want to make a transaction, if you want to write something into the blockchain, you have to pay it. But the problem is that you don't know how much, because these coins, these cryptocurrencies are actually fluctuating, and you don't really know how much you are going to pay. Are you going to pay more or less? This is very bad for business. I mean, if you're making a game and you, let's say, expect, I don't know, 1 million of transactions, you want to know how much it's going to cost you, right? Because otherwise this business model may fail tomorrow, right? So it's a very, very complicated. And there are some other challenges that I want to mention as well. As I said, everything has a price. I remember when we were, launching the project in 2017, just in order to store the addresses of this ICO that we wanted to launch, just to store it on a blockchain, we spent $10,000. So just one entry into the database, basically, nothing else. It was like $10,000, and then it broke. We made some sort of mistake. Then we had to repeat it, do it again. So everything has a price. Then there is this ridiculous slang, like GM, HODL, WAGMI, and so on. So people who are in Web3 are kind of, playing their own culture, pretending to be something. Sometimes it's cool, sometimes it's not that much. There is a very steep learning curve. Why I know that? Because I have students who are studying at my university, the program that I'm teaching as Web2 developers. And then because they see the time in Web3, they sometimes get excited about it and they want to start learning as well, or maybe be an intern in our company or something like that. And I see that it takes them a lot of time, to switch to have this mental switch and learn all these technologies, but also to have this mind switch, because it's a different paradigm. Tech is developing really fast. That's another problem, that like you cannot even possibly comprehend what is going on in the industry. Like the innovation in Web 2 is kind of incremental. Like if you're following a certain part of this technology, you can follow it and have an idea what's going on. There is a new database, there is a new engine for this, there is a new technology for that, but it doesn't really makes it still impossible to be aware what is the industry standard, what is the common technology, and so on. In Web 3, well, very hard. You have to be focused on one ecosystem maybe, and then it is possible. But if you want to follow everything, impossible. Especially because the data is sometimes hidden. If you want to learn about specific ecosystems, you will find some scarce documentation. You have to go to some Telegram groups or Discord to find the people who are working on it, to actually realize what's going on there. Is it working for real, or is it just a PR? What is it? So yeah, there are zillions of projects, ecosystem technologies, tools, and one of the things that I'm really sad about, no standards. Any kind of standards. Like in web, if somebody remembers the browser wars, in the end they sit and said, okay, let's make some standards. Let's agree on this and decide how we are going to do it from now on. And all of us will conform to these standards. But in Web3 you don't have that. Like actually they even prefer to change something that is really, really working well, just in order to be a next hero project, because community doesn't understand very well the technology always, and they will support anything that sounds good. So let's just make a twist here, make the same thing, make a small twist. It's going to be, community supported. We are going to earn money. Everybody is going to be happy. But this is actually something bad for the industry, right? Very bad. Now, why would you care? Well, as I said, I was kind of, attracted to Web3. And I have this saying that I like to say a lot. I think if you truly understand Web3 and you don't fall in love in it, you're probably a misanthrope. You probably do not care about humanity that much. Because once you get into the technology, you actually realize that it has a potential. It really has a potential to solve some humanity issues. I'm not saying about all. Like we in technology, especially when there is a new trend, we think that it will solve everything. Like now it's AI. AI will solve, I think, everything. And yes, probably it will solve some of the problems that we have, but definitely not everything. So, but what I'm trying to say is that the only difference, why Web3 is so special for me, at least, I was thinking about it a lot, and I realized, like everything so far is related to the information. Like everything is just exchange of the information from the user to the company, or between the users. But what Web3 actually brings to the story is actually something more, ownership, which is something that you really don't have in any of other technologies. This is why I think there is a huge potential. But on the other side, what kind of problems can we solve? You may be asking. Well, it's not really that we are going to, if we are talking about money transactions, this was the first idea of crypto, basically with Bitcoin and Satoshi, But I don't think the huge, there is a potential there, but this is not it. This is not really the only thing that we should care about. I think we can solve other things like content creation on the internet, rights, privacy of data. Even nowadays we have a lot of movements in the field of zero knowledge proofs. And like this cryptography that was actually hidden 20 years, 30 years ago, now is actually getting huge traction, and we can see that we can solve the issues and problems that we couldn't solve any time in the past. So I really think that there are some very interesting and big problems for the humanity that could be solved with this technology. And definitely, if you're comparing Web 2 and Web 3, you know this book, I suppose, many of you. But you know, like this is Web 3. You know, sorry, this is Web 2. You know, like there are thousands of companies already established in Web 2 space, and if you want to innovate there, well, you have to fight with lot of different players, you know, and you have to be really innovative, you know, in order to actually start from scratch. Otherwise, you have to, you know, lean on something that already exists. On the other side, in Web 3, basically everything is still, you know, undiscovered. And we are still trying to figure out even how to use it, you know, what is it good for. So this is the good side, where we can actually create innovations that will, you know, in a way be really disruptive, be really something different. And it's not that you're forced to innovate because somebody else will do it before you, but you're forced to innovate because you're curious. This is the big difference. Now, there are two types of innovation four types in this graph, but generally two types of innovations that I'm trying to talk about. One is this incremental that, as I said, I see, you know, in Web 2, where we have gradual continuous improvements on existing product and services mostly, and only rarely some sort of really disruptive. I'm not saying there is not, but yeah, only rarely, compared, you know, to radical and disruptive innovation that you have in this emerging field. I mean, Web 3 exists from, I would say, if we are not counting the period before Ethereum, because it was not possible to write smart contracts before that time, so it was just about coins. But after the Ethereum from 2014-15, you know, we have web. So we may even argue, is it so new? Well, it's not that new, but it's very young. It's very, very young. Now, I want to tell you another sorry, just a second. I want to tell you another story. This is a village. And in this village, by the end of 19th century, second half of 19th century, the kid was born. And it's basically a village in the middle of nowhere. Not so distant from where I live, but generally, you know, just a small village. And this kid, you know, in any other circumstances would probably become a shepherd, you know, a farmer, like, you know, his parents and so on. But there was one specific, I would say two specific circumstances that were special about this kid. One is that father was actually very educated guy. He was a priest, and he had a huge library of philosophy, poetry, all kinds of things, science. He was very much interested into science. And the kid was intelligent and curious, you know. So he was raised actually to read these books. And he found a huge passion for these books. And because of that, this kid didn't stay in this village to be a shepherd. Actually, he moved first around the Europe, then to America, USA, and you probably know about him. I don't have it. I have an image. He's Nikola Tesla. He's the guy that we actually try to find inspiration from, because he was a very strange guy, you know, like he was a guy who actually lived a kind of a life of a hermit, you know, trying to find a meaning in this science and technology of that time. But if we didn't have this guy, actually, we would probably not have these lights today, you know, or at least not in this way as we do today. So generally, we tried when we wanted to solve this problem. Okay, so how can we innovate in this new emerging field that we don't know really much about? Well, let's see what Tesla was doing, you know. And this is one of our role models for our 3327, and I didn't say that, but we have a department that is called 3327. It's actually a number of Tesla's room in New York where he lived in the hotel, and this is why we call it 3327. And this is our R&D department where we are actually trying to create new innovative things. So have an even bigger vision of tomorrow. Playfulness and exploration take priority. Quiet the mind and spend time in solitude. Embrace the uncertain and reach out for revolutionary discoveries. Have no empty shelves. No obstacle is large enough. Go into the wild even if they don't want you to. Now this sounds like a pamphlet, but in reality, what does it mean? Well, we actually allocate a budget for our researchers, and we say you can do whatever you want, and you can fail, and fail as much as you like. And even if you fail, that's good, because we can prove that something doesn't work. So, I mean, it's a dream job, right? You just do whatever you want. And the whole idea is that you should actually try things that maybe nobody tried yet. That you should actually, experiment with anything. Now, it's not really easy for company to actually allocate a budget like that, because it may mean that it will be completely thrown away, right? But on the other side, it actually brings results. Our company pioneered some of the things in this Web3 industry. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but we pioneered some of the things, and we are very proud of some of the protocols, some of the DeFi protocols that are actually very, very famous, that you probably know about, and so on. And this happened only because we were experimenting. We were brave enough to experiment. Now, on the other side, it also means you have to earn on the other side enough so that you can, put a bit of budget for this kind of completely, open discovery and so on. But this is what we do. We have an R&D team of researchers assembled to experiment and play with cutting-edge technologies. Most of them are academic as well, but not all of them. Some of them are developers. And basically, they have no instructions what to do. Just do whatever you want. Now, one of the things that we actually developed and that I'm very proud of is what is called Web3 Technology Radar. And this is the URL that you can find it if you want to take a look. Because of all this chaos and mess, what we realized is it would be good if we can organize it somehow. If we can help other developers to actually learn a little bit about it and maybe teach them about what technologies are currently something that we are using. It's very opinionated. It is not something that we can defend on the court. This is something that actually we think. But I think that we have a solid understanding of the system, and the opinion is not too bad. So if you go there, you will basically, this is metaphor that it's not new, having a radar, but just to show you how it's organized. Basically, you have 4 quadrants, and these 4 quadrants are basically languages and frameworks, tools, platforms, and techniques. And you have also these rings, and these rings are basically technologies that we are already using a lot, technologies that are on the trial, so we are using but not always in the production, then technologies that we are just assessing, so we are not sure if we are going to use them, and finally the technologies that are on hold, which means basically that, for example, we have a one JavaScript library that we use to connect to the blockchains, but we are not really using it anymore because there is a new one which is better. Okay, so this is when something goes on hold. Now, because this is the first version, they are all circles, but in the future some of them have different shapes, so it will actually indicate if something just came in or came out and things like that. Now, we are working on the version 2, and the version 2 is even better, because what we did is actually we realized that we also have to divide it by ecosystems. So for example, Ethereum, Cardano, and so on. So what we did, we created actually first the ecosystem selection, where you can actually see how many validators they have, how much, what is the size of the network, what is the speed of transaction, and so on. And then when you go into that, then you can also see what kind of technologies we are using to develop new products for that. And I think this is an open source thing. I mean, we open sourced it, and we actually community sourced the data as well. So if anybody wants to contribute, you're free. You know, you can actually send your proposals what should be on this radar. We are not doing this for us. This is actually something to help other people, you know, get into the space and understand what is it. So one of the things that we've really discovered as a crucial is this knowledge sharing that we have to make. Another thing, and on the same side, is we actually decided to publish everything that we are researching. So you can find this website basically where we are, you know, just publishing everything that we are doing for anybody to read. It's not something that is hidden. We are not hiding anything. We are just, you know, giving everything to the community, because we realized that this is the way how we connect to other developers. This is the way how we actually attract people who are maybe interested in specific types of problems to join us and say, okay, this is something I was working on, can I contribute, and so on. So we are growing the team outside of the team, and this is one of the goals as well. Now, some of the general conclusions, because I don't want this to all to be just a story. I wanted to give you maybe some of the conclusions in the end. Is, well, first of all, you know, I often people ask me, is it too early to get into this Web3, maybe, you know, like, or is it maybe too late? Well, it is not early, definitely. Soon it may be late. It's not late as well. I mean, it's a good time to jump into Web3 technologies. And I don't see that Web3, although maybe the name is kind of misleading, will replace Web2. They will coexist. I mean, when we are working on Web3 projects, I would say, well, most of the time it's kind of, I don't know, some Next.js plus some React for the front end. So, you know, there is a lot of Web2 stack. And then there are just few things that are actually related to the blockchain itself. It doesn't have to be this or that. And I really think that Web3 is here to solve real business and humanity problems. I can say that we are working in the fields of automotive industry, in the fields of gaming industry, in the fields of content creation, social networks, and so on. And many of these projects are really exciting, you know, and promise some kind of better solution for the problems that they're trying to solve. And definitely it will not solve all the problems, but some problems have no better solution than Web3 has to offer. Now, if you want to have some of the recommendations, how we are, you know, how to approach if you want to build something completely new, well, first of all, try to not think about profit. Yeah, just think, you know, in terms of technology and science. How can I improve this? How can I make something, you know, new completely, or put it in a different context? Even better, it's very important to understand what is the problem that we want to solve. This is one of the issues that I don't like about many of the projects in Web3, is that they're actually not solving any kind of problem. They're just make technology and then try to find the problem that this technology can solve. But this is bad, you know. We have to reverse it. We have to find actual problems that people have and try to solve them. Then do it for the sake of humanity, as I said. Create an innovation culture and methodology. I mean, I'm lying if I say that we do not have some strict methodology. Yes, we do, but not in terms of how and what, but most in terms how you report on it, how do you know, approach the data, and things like that, how to publish it and stuff like that. We do have methodology. Think bold, celebrate the failures, and share the knowledge. You know, if you don't share it, there is a very, very high chance that you're not going to get too far away with that. And finally, in tech recommendation, regarding the tech recommendation, people ask me sometimes, okay, so what kind of ecosystem you recommend, where to work with? If I want to start with blockchain, should I go with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, I don't know, Avalanche, and so on? I think you should work within the large ecosystems like Ethereum. Ethereum offers a huge ecosystem, It's a layer 1 blockchain, but actually it offers the layer 2 solutions are offering this compatibility, EVM compatibility with blockchain. So generally Ethereum is a good place to start, definitely. I'm not saying it's the only blockchain you should care about, but definitely a good start. Optimize with proven EVM based layer 2 solutions, like for example Polygon, but you know there are a few others as well. Another thing, people often talk about this decentralization, you know, and the way I understood it first time was like it's a binary thing, you know, something is decentralized or centralized, but it's not really like that, you know. Very often recently, you know, projects are approaching us and asking us, okay, can we maybe make something that is, well, not that much decentralized, not fully decentralized, and it's okay. It's okay, you know, if you're creating, for example, a supply chain solution that will just, you know, be a solution between 10 companies that have their own supply chain. Well, the only thing they care about is that data is decentralized enough so that there is no high risk of collusion, but not really that it is perfectly decentralized as maybe some may think. And final thing that is extremely important is make it user-friendly. Now, what is going on? For example, we were building a social network recently, and we realized for this social network that you have to connect your wallet. So there is a pop-up. You connect your wallet, but not only when you are logging into the social network, but every time that you have to post or something, there is a pop-up, and you have to sign your transaction. Now, this sucks. Who is going to use that? I mean, you have Instagram and you're just going to press send, and you're not going to really do that. So this is why, and this is solvable, definitely. There are several solutions for this problem, especially recently we are talking about account abstraction, which is one of the ways how this can be solved. But what I'm trying to say is, like, we have to find ways that people will naturally use this technology. They don't care is it blockchain or not, right? They don't care is it Web 2 or Web 3. They just want a good product. So this is what we have to give them. And yeah, thank you.